Ever want to know about how to get the best support you can get directly from Lightburn? Stick around to find out. Just before the holiday season, I was able to touch base with Jason from Lightburn to discuss the support structure within Lightburn. If you've ever had an issue that you couldn't work out yourself, you might have contacted Lightburn directly. Find out what information you can add to get your questions solved quickly and how the support structure within Lightburn is designed to help you get the results you want. Before we jump into the chat with Jason, be sure to hit that subscribe button and bell icon so you don't miss out on any of the upcoming tutorials or projects based around Lightburn. And don't forget to join the Laser Livestream Facebook group where you can share your projects and meet like-minded laserologists exploring what they can create with their laser. Jason from Lightburn, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Good. We're doing great here. Thank you so much for coming back and having a chat with us. As you know, since the last time we had a conversation, people have they love learning about the history of Lightburn and some of the stories behind how this actually came about. Some really great comments on the video on YouTube. So we wanted to bring you back on board, see how everything's going on Lightburn. I know it's towards the end of 2021.
Indeed.
Your face is like, 2021,
yeah,
we don't want to talk about it.
Waiting for it to be over. Yeah.
Well, it's less than 30 days, and I'm sure,
yeah.
I'm sure Santa knows whether you're naughty or nice. I'm hoping, I'm pretty confident that you're nice. Most of the time. It's like, I had this dream that, like, behind closed doors, someone sends you some help. Hey, I did this and it didn't work, and there's a Jason that becomes like the Hulk. It just becomes this red dragon that's like, I told you, press this. No, I know that doesn't happen. But I do want to talk to you about the way Lightburn is set up to help users. Because one of the things that I saw with some of the feedback and some of the videos that I've been providing with tutorials based around Lightburn is that I don't think there's a lot of people who actually reach out to Lightburn, the company, for assistance and get frustrated.
Yeah, we see that a fair bit, and it kind of always surprises me. People will post on Facebook, and I think Facebook has this immediacy to it,
yeah,
where you get instant answers. The problem is that they're typically wrong, and I couldn't count the number of times that I've seen people say, you have to convert to path before you weld.
Sure.
You don't. Like there are a few things that are sort of go-tos. Like I will see somebody post vector graphics and ask, hey, how do I get this to do this particular thing? And somebody will tell them, oh, you've got to trace it first and ungroup it. And I'm like, it's already vectors. You can't trace that. And there's just sort of a culture of shoot from the hip, and nobody bothers to ask what kind of laser does the person have, how is it connected, what operating system are they using, what type of file is it. Somebody will say, hey, this isn't coming out right, what am I doing wrong? But they've given you no information to work with. They haven't said, this was a vector graphic, I'm running it on a CO2 laser or a diode laser, these were my settings. It's just, this isn't working, what am I doing? And, like if you called your mechanic and said, my car isn't driving, what am I doing? He would hang up on you.
Right.
It's just 100%. Like, you need to specify, you need to give specifics. You need to say, this is the type of file, these were the settings that I was using, and not just, 300 speed. Speed is millimeters per second or millimeters per minute or inches per second or parsecs per fortnight or something. But speed has units. And if you say, I plugged it, I ran this at 300 speed, that doesn't tell me much. It tells me 300, but it could have been 300 inches a minute, 300 inches a second, 300 millimeters a minute, 300 millimeters a second. And that is a common issue with people who are just randomly grabbing numbers off the internet. So somebody will say, oh, what settings did you use for that? And somebody else will say, oh, speed 300. But they won't tell you what machine it was or what speed it was. And yeah.
I recently had some feedback, which I thought I made it very clear that I was using a specific machine. It was a diode laser, and these are the settings that work. and it was to work out engraving settings for any job. So, you know, it was really about the methodology that you then apply to your laser.
Right.
And I think, you know, within the first 30 minutes of that video going live, someone was like, you know, BS, this doesn't work, it's just black. And I'm like, what laser are you using? And they go, it's a CO2 laser. And I'm like, well, if you're going to put it onto
it's 130 watt CO2 laser,
And I'm like, no, you know, you might want to wind down your power and maybe move it a little faster. And they're like,
number one, you're lucky you didn't set yourself on fire. Number two,
with cardboard too. So they would have atomized the cardboard if they had followed the tutorial. So it reminds me a little bit as well, a lot of the feedback that I've been getting as well, because I guess in a way I've kind of suddenly become unofficial Lightburn support, because people can get to us through the Lightburn group. Oh, sorry, the Laser Livestream group.
Laser Livestream group,
or through Facebook, through the YouTube channel, which is fine. I'm more than happy to help it out when I can, but it's usually real simple things as well, that the step that's been missed. And it reminds me a little bit like that scene from the film Sling By, where the guy's trying to work out, you know, why his lawnmower doesn't work, and the guy's sitting there going, it's out of gas. And he's like just ignoring it, and you're like, press this button, and you know, it's out of gas, man. And it's like, no. Another one that recently I get quite a lot of is previews don't work, and you're like, you know, what are the settings in your preview window? You know,
right?
Because sometimes if you're doing engrave,
it's preview doesn't work. People will say that, and it's the preview is intended to show you the path the laser will take.
Right.
It's not intended to show you a perfect representation of what it's going to look like on the final material. So if you have a dithered image, for example, that's a photograph, and I'm showing you, here are all the lines that your laser is going to draw, I can't make the pixels on your screen narrower. So if you have something that's, say, you know, a relatively large, I'm holding my hands up, but it's hard for you to see because the image crop, but
it's in the box.
You have, it's in the box. So if you have an image that's, you know, a foot wide and a foot high, and you're previewing it on a screen that's a couple of inches wide, and it's 300 DPI, I'm drawing every single one of those dots, and they just get mushed together.
Absolutely.
On your screen. It just looks like black. So you actually have to zoom in before you can start to see any of the details. So we get that occasionally. And we will also get people like negating the preview and then wondering why it didn't negate their output. It's like, well, that's just the preview window. You can negate that so that you can see what it might look like if you were engraving on tile or granite, or, you know, some like a white acrylic painted black. You know, if you invert the preview, it will show you what your output would look like on that negated material. It doesn't invert the job. It's just inverting the output material, sort of like the preview itself. We get people who tell others to go into the device settings and click on the additional settings tab and change those numbers to make their job faster. And it's like, no, that has a bunch of red text on it that says these settings only affect your preview simulation. They do not affect the output of your laser. And the fact that there's that red text there basically blinking at you doesn't seem to affect their, you know, they just, no, that's what it does. I know it. That's what it does. I've tried it and it worked. It's like correlation is not causation.
So, I mean, simple things, definitely. I think that Facebook is a great way, especially when people are learning. Just, I mean, you know, a simple one that I get all the time is, I don't have these options. And it's like, take it out of beginner's mode. Where is that? Okay, it's there. Oh, thank you. Now we can go on. But if someone's got a problem, what... I'd love if we could just go through what actually happens. What would Lightburn need? What's the actual pathway? So I send an email. What happens at your end? I'm assuming that you are not the person who's answering every single problem.
No, thankfully no. We get a lot of email. We have, well, Lightburn is up to 13 people now. And that's not all full time. We have a handful of developers who are full time. We have a couple of support people who are basically full time, and then we have a bunch of support people who are kind of part time. And we've spread them out so that they cover different time zones. So we've got somebody in the UK, we've got somebody in California, we've got a couple here in the East Coast in New York.
Do you need anyone in Australia? I know a few people who'd love to help out.
We could, honestly, if you're volunteering, let me know. But so when somebody sends us an email, like you send an email to support@lightburnsoftware.com, it goes into the queue. Somebody will initially triage it. We get a lot of messages that are, can you extend my trial? I've lost my license key. Can you send that to me?
Sure.
Simple things that aren't really technical questions. And so those are what we call tier 0. And they're just, any one of our staff could answer those. And then we have other questions, which are more usage questions, like when I'm trying to build this ornament and I weld the text, it disappears. What am I doing wrong? Those will go into sort of the tier 1 bucket. And then tier 2 is more anything that's complicated, anything that's a really deep question, possibly a bug, those things will get investigated by developers. And it can take a little while for us to respond. And that is just kind of the nature of the business. We don't have, at this point, we've got more than 120,000 customers. Ooh. And yeah, it's a lot. And, to support that many people with a team of 13, a team of 13 sounds impressive, but with that many users, we have to be super efficient. And, so we have tools internally that help us manage that volume more effectively. We've got lots of things like canned responses. So if we see the same question over and over and over again, like you said, half of my controls are missing, what do I do? We'll have a response that's canned, that's just, oh, you're probably in beginner mode. Go here, do this, change this toggle. And that's quite literally a response that I can just hit a key combination to insert into an email, press enter. And so we will use canned responses in combination with, a little bit of personalization. And that helps us manage that volume.
I don't want to see your Zendesk desk.
Oh, it's like scary.
I was going to say.
But we get a lot of very, very vague questions. So people will ask, my laser is doing this. What am I doing wrong? And it's like, well, you haven't told me what my laser is. And you said this, and you showed me a picture of something that looks like a lasered output. I can't tell what's wrong with it. I can't tell, if you don't show me what the original is compared to what you've got, I can't see what's different. I'm not a mind reader, as much as some people would like to claim that I am. And so the more information and the more specifics that you can provide, that goes a long way to helping us. So, saying I wasn't able to do this, for example, doesn't tell me what it did do. It doesn't tell me what you could do. If you say I was trying to design this thing and I couldn't do it, well, that doesn't tell me, is your power out? Are you trapped under something heavy? Could you not find the option? Chances are pretty good that those first two aren't it, but you get the idea.
Sure. Can we open that up? I think there's two really good examples that I would love people to understand the information that Lightburn needs and how to get the best result out of the tech support that you guys provide, because I've always had real positive experiences when I've had issues with Lightburn directly or through some of the staff members that you have, and I know quite a few other people have. It always surprises me when people come back and go they weren't able to help. So let's take the first example. Let's say that I've run my laser and I haven't got the results that I want. Instead of just giving you a photo of the final product and saying this didn't work, what should I be sending to you?
That photo is good. If I can see what the end result is, or we can see what the end result is, that's obviously helpful. What kind of laser you have, what wattage it is. Right. So if it's a CO2 or a diode, what power it is. And if you can provide it, if you're comfortable providing it, the file. So that we can see the settings, because we will have people send us a DXF file or an AI file, like Illustrator file,
sure,
or an SVG, and say, when I ran this, it didn't work. And that file is the original artwork. It's the vectors and the, what you sent to the laser, but it doesn't tell me how fast you sent it. It doesn't tell me what speed, or power values were applied. It doesn't tell me, if you send a picture, it doesn't tell me what DPI settings you use, which dithering mode, that kind of thing. So if you send the Lightburn project, we can actually open that up and check to see, is your DPI reasonable? Did you use an appropriate image mode? Was it a reasonable speed for the type of machine you have? Did you have an option enabled or disabled? Every once in a while, it'll be something silly like, I have a shape that looks like this, and it just happened to be touching the edge of the workspace. So Lightburn decided, oh, I can't send that to the laser, it'll be out of bounds. It just gets rid of it. It can be, the software has a lot of options, and it can be complicated and especially daunting for somebody who's new. And so the more information that you can give us up front, generally the easier time we have, figuring out what went wrong and advising you correctly. And if you don't provide that, then it's a lot of back and forth kind of, with the user asking those questions and just trying to get that information from them before we can really be effective.
Now, I'm just curious, I send you the Lightburn file, the project file. Can you tell the settings that I have my machine? Maybe I've got it set to like millimeters per minute instead of per second. I can see, not in the Lightburn file itself. Okay.
But we have additional information that we may request, and we don't always. And in Lightburn, there is a way to generate support data. If you go to the help menu, you can click generate support data, and it copies a blob of garbage into your clipboard, and you paste that into the email when we request it. We don't need everyone to send this. I
see people just sending random stuff.
It happens.
What happened? Here's my stuff.
Yeah, we will have people like, my face is itchy. Here's the support data. It's like, no, I didn't need that. But the support data contains. My eyes?
Here's my support data.
Exactly. Yeah, my beard is too long. We have a tool that takes that blob and converts it into something that we can read. Right. And that includes your cut settings, your display settings, your unit settings, information about the device settings on your machine. So it won't be anything that's specific to your hardware. It won't include things like the firmware settings in the hardware, but it does include a lot of information that we can use to sort of see, like we can tell, did you have beginner mode turned on? Did you have cut selected graphics enabled and you didn't mean to, or that kind of thing. And so that can help as well. And then we have the ability to do debug logging. In Lightburn, you can turn on a log. And so if you're having a problem with machine communication, for example, sometimes we'll ask you to do a log capture for us so that we can see whether or not your computer was able to talk to the laser at all, whether it got a response back from it, that kind of thing, whether there was something untoward that happened behind the scenes that it didn't tell you about. So
awesome.
Those things help.
It obviously, now that you've got a staff, you've obviously got staff there for supporting the software. So obviously, you were mentioning before you have tiers of different things. I'm assuming you're on tier 10? Or tier 50?
I think I'm like tier 2 and 3. Or we call it tier 2, and that is like investigative.
Sure.
And yeah, I'm up there, but I still pull a lot of other tickets.
It's your baby.
It depends. Yeah, it's my baby. It really is. And I honestly like to kind of keep my fingers in things just to see what are the issues that are coming up over and over and over again. Sure. And if we see a pattern, we try to figure out, is there a way that we can reduce this from happening? Is there a way that, if we see everyone over and over and over again, one of the common problems with some Gerbil devices was people were trying to use current position mode or user origin mode instead of absolute coordinates, and not really understanding what those did. And it's not clear from just the term. If you're a new user and you don't really know what those mean, you might think, oh, current position means just where I have it currently. That's not an invalid assumption. It's just not the assumption that we made. And so they would try to run their job. They would get an alarm from the firmware telling them, oh, this is out of bounds. And they don't understand why, because clearly it's not out of bounds. It's exactly where I put it on the page. So we saw that happen a fair bit. Sure. And we made the software a little smarter. So now if you are running a job and it's not in absolute coordinates and you get that specific alarm code from your Gerbil device, it will send you a pop-up that says, I notice you're in current position mode and you got this alarm. I can take you to the help page that tells you, why this likely happened, and here's the mode that you probably meant to use. Would you like more information? We can do stuff like that if we notice patterns, and we absolutely do. And we've tried to make the software do more intelligent things when it's setting up your device initially. It'll query the firmware to ask things like, what's the maximum speed of this machine? Does it have homing enabled? So it can set those things for you automatically. And so the more people ask us directly, the more of that information I can gather and the better we can advance the software. If nobody ever sends us a message saying, hey, I'm having this problem, I have to be trolling Facebook constantly and looking for these things. And I do that, but it's easier if it's sent directly to us.
No, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting because there are certain things that come up, and I think it's really, one of the things that I enjoy about going to the Lightburn site and getting involved in the forums and seeing what people are doing is also you have a part of your website where people can suggest different functionality for the software.
Yep.
And the way it's set up is you can see what people are voting for, and then it can be actioned, which is a really nice way of being able to see what your audience and what your users want.
Yep, and we do pay attention to that. We've added, honestly, quite a few of the features in Lightburn were things that I didn't think of and were suggested by users, and they make it into Lightburn because enough people voted for them that we were like, oh wow, that's really a thing that people want. Okay. And some of them have been up there for a considerable amount of time, like nesting, and that one is planned and it's something that we want to do, and it's just incredibly complicated.
Sure.
And so that one's going to take some time. But, there have been plenty of other features where somebody will make a suggestion and I'll see it and go, why didn't I think of that? That's cool. And even before anybody votes for it, I'm just like, wow, that's really simple. And I should have thought of that. And so I'm going to go do that right now.
Well, I want to thank Jason from Lightburn for taking time out of his day to come and chat to us about the software and how people can get a hold of the support team if you find yourself in a situation where you need some extra help. If you like this interview and want to learn more about Lightburn and what it can do, check out these videos right here for a deeper dive into what you can create with your laser. Till next time, happy holidays, and I hope you go and make something amazing.